And welcome to another episode of the Tar Heels Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Grant Chachere, the lead beat writer for Tar Heels on SI. We are finally here. Today is game day. Thank God. So we've watched hundreds of college football games, and finally North Carolina is one of them. It's been a great weekend of college football. It was actually the last college game day for the GOAT, Lee Corso. And he got all of his picks right, including my Fighting Tigers of LSU. So I'm really glad that his predictions came through. And all of them got right. Usually he's pretty wrong on some, but all of his predictions came true. And also picked the Florida State upset over Alabama. So that was a huge win for the ACC as well. But, this could be it's really just a huge weekend for the ACC in general, but especially for North Carolina. They'll be taking on the TCU Horned Frogs. And that should be a great game, a great atmosphere. And I made a podcast yesterday describing that it might be the most anticipated home opener in the history of North Carolina football, which is incredible. Gives a lot of history with this program, but when you have a guy like Bill Belichick as your head coach, the stadium sold out. It sold out for all the home games, including this one. You're going up against a marquee opponent, TCU, who went to the national championship 2 years ago. This is a big time game. Jeremiah Artacho, of course, associate beat writer. Jeremiah, I know you're a huge Tar Heel fan. You grew up in Triangle, you're a Tar Heel fan all your life. Now you're a student. Just from a fan perspective and a student perspective as well, what has been the vibe like for not only for the this area and campus, but also just the fan base in itself?
Man, so it's now 2 weeks as a UNC student. It's great. I love being here. The campus is awesome. Love the vibes. All the students here are great. My professors are awesome. But in regards to the game, for example, my roommates, they received tickets, and my other friends have received tickets as well, and they're like all super stoked. They went through a lottery process, and they just happened to be one of the lucky few to get selected for a ticket, and they're extremely hyped. I told one of my friends earlier before getting on this podcast that Michael Jordan will be in attendance, and he's like, "What?" He can't believe it. So even the people who will be at the game, besides what's going on the gridiron, is exciting itself. The atmosphere is going to be absolutely nuts. I don't think it has ever been like that until up in this point. When has football ever been a talking point for UNC, since it's always been a basketball point or basketball school? So the vibe has been crazy. Everyone is always has the hype about Bill Belichick, 8-time Super Bowl champion, and it's going to be interesting to see what he does tomorrow night in front of a sold-out crowd.
Yeah, definitely, man. It's just really just incredible, just how much hype has been around this program. Usually, and I've said this before. I've only lived in North Carolina here for about a month. But I just know that North Carolina is a basketball school, and oftentimes football has been left in the afterburner. I'm not the only one saying this. Multiple people have talked. I actually talked with AJ about it. About just really, it wasn't until recently where Bill Belichick's a big reason for that. He's really been promoting the history of the program, and I've been looking back at. A lot of my articles this week have been about the history of the program. Really, most of them have been like, I've done my top 5 quarterbacks, top 5 running backs, stuff like that. But then when you start looking at some of the teams that they had, and like that 97 defense was incredible. That was a top 5 defense across the board. With 3 first rounders. Dre Bly was, probably one of the greatest cornerbacks, not only in North Carolina history, in the history of the ACC, but in college football history. There's a lot of history with this program, and it really took Bill Belichick. And really, I think it's the whole university as a whole started realizing, oh, wait, we need to really focus on football because that is a major revenue driver. And I mentioned this in the previous podcast, Jeremy. I'm not sure if you saw it, but I mentioned that because I mentioned that the Big East, and I'm not talking about the current Big East, I'm talking about the old Big East. And one of the biggest downfalls of the old Big East was that they didn't invest in football enough. Right. And I mentioned the Penn State example. Like, they had an opportunity to add Penn State to the conference, and they didn't. The Big Ten got them because the Big East turned them down. And then over time, yeah, of course they were able to get Miami and a couple other programs, but over time, it was very clear that football was the main driving force, and that led to the collapse of the original Big East. And I think that's what North Carolina is realizing right now, because, like I said, and like it's been reported before, North Carolina is interested in possibly leaving the ACC to join the SEC, and that's why I mentioned why it has to be the ACC has to have a big week in football, because because if they don't, because people are starting to look at other. You need to show that you're competitive in football, because right now the ACC is kind of seen as a joke. And I mentioned, and I was on a radio show in Vermont. Some guys called me from Vermont, and they do a great job over there, and they're really excited about what Bill Belichick could bring to the table, because of course Vermont, you have a lot of New England Patriots fans. And I mentioned too, like, if UNC wins this game, which, by the way, I don't think they won't, and we'll discuss a little bit later in the pod. But I'd say, hypothetically, if UNC were to win this game, they're a possible playoff contender, because their schedule is easy. The ACC's not a good right now, not a good conference to many people around college football. And then on top of that, you avoid Florida State, who, by the way, looked much better than they did last year. Now, the Alabama team could be bad, but who knows? But you avoid Georgia Tech, who's a really good team. You avoid SMU, you avoid Miami, you avoid Louisville. Those are 5 of the top 6 teams right now in the ACC, and you avoid them. The only one you have to play in the top 6 is Clemson. And that's, what I'm saying? And Clemson is the favorite to win the ACC. I don't think they're going to beat Clemson, but that's how easy the schedule is. Now, they still have some, Duke is going to be really good. Duke looked really good the other night, especially Darian Mensah. But the other teams in the ACC, they're beatable. This is a really beatable schedule.
Yeah, I mean, going back to your point about Dre Bly and the defense from before, this UNC program has featured a lot of good individual players. I can name 3 right now. Sam Howell, Drake May, Amarian Hampton, 3 insane players that has done a lot for the program. But they just never really had that team success as a lot would have hoped. I mean, they had a lot of great individual seasons, but never had a complete team. So looking back on it, was it a head coach issue? Maybe. Was it just the whole composition of the team itself? Maybe. I mean, a lot of different factors, but I feel that with Bill Belichick here, starting at UNC tomorrow as his first collegiate game as a head coach, is just really opening a new chapter for UNC football itself. I mean, it's just putting everything that has happened before to the side and just, starting anew. And yeah, UNC schedule, I mean, for the reporters roundtable, the piece that you released, I put them as 9-3, and yeah, the rest of their schedule is beatable, as you said. So it just really all comes down to execution, and if Coach Bill Belichick can still light that fire as he has in the past earlier on in his career in the NFL.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you brought up a great point about individual play. The last few background teams, I mean, especially the ones in 22, 20, really just this whole entire, tenure, unlike the first, because this first stint, they had great teams full of great players. I mean, the 96 and 97 teams were great. They were awesome, especially on the defensive side, but also on the offensive side of the ball as well. But then if you look at a second stint, there was really more individual performances, like you said. I mean, Sam Howell for 3 years, and then you had Drake May, and also Amarian Hampton was also interlocked in that as well. You never really had a great team, right? And those teams from the 70s through the 90s, they had great teams. The 1980 team, the last team to win the ACC title, was a great team. You had 2 1,000-yard running backs. You had a great offensive line. I mean, we already know about the defense led by Lawrence Taylor and Calvin Daniels, and just a great team. And that's something that North Carolina really has been missing. They really haven't had a great team. They've had great individual players. I mean, if you want to go back, Hakeem Nicks, Bryn Renner, and Giovanni Bernard. Even before that, Darren Durant, I mean, I think he's one of the most forgotten stars in UNC history. He was the leading passer in UNC history for a long time. He just unfortunately had to play on bad teams, ones with really bad defenses, which has been the theme of North Carolina football for the past, who knows how long. Which is crazy to think about, because from the 70s and through the 90s, they were known for defense. And being a physical run game. Now it's more finesse and throwing the ball down the field and literally playing zero defense whatsoever.
Oh man, yeah. Well, I feel that Steve Belichick's presence coming off from his time at Washington, I feel he has some good personal momentum going. I mean, he's been doing well, and I feel like UNC's defense is. I said in one of our pods, in one of my last appearances, that the defense is the stronger side compared to the offense. I mean, the offense is filled with so many unknowns. I mean, you have Gio Lopez, the official starting QB, but besides him, who else will show up, especially in the running back room? So,
Yeah, and I think I'm glad you mentioned Steve Belichick because really, it's the whole Belichick really, and they preach team football. The whole thing of tough, smart, and was it discipline?
dependable, tough,
Dependable, yeah,
smart, dependable.
dependable. That is team that preaches the team. Just a lot of the things that they have done has been about the team. Look at all the guys that brought in. It's about team, 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 team. It's not a bunch of me, 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 me. I know team without me is in team, but it is team. And that's something that they've really been preaching. It's something that's really important because you're going against a TCU team that's really good. These guys have played with each other for a very long time. And look, if you look at the starters, the snaps, TCU has a slight edge in the snaps, but those guys have played together before, right? They've played together for the last 2 or 3 years. UNC, on the other hand, has 70 new players, 40 of which were added after the spring. And Bill Belichick's discussed that a lot throughout fall camp. That it's been hard to evaluate players because, for starters, you have 40 new players, and on top of that, you only have 2 weeks to be in pads.
Man, yeah, they never really have as much of, like, looking at it now, I feel like maybe Coach Belichick didn't have as much of an acclimation period as he likes to say, as he may have wanted to. But I mean, he had to do what he had to do with the time given, and yeah, it'll be interesting. They didn't really get as much time in with the pads. I mean, from what you and I have been able to see through media availabilities, Grant, we didn't really see much, but besides stretching and their drills, as we've said time and time again through fall camp and on these podcasts, but it's going to be a surprise. I mean, whether UNC does well tomorrow is going to be a surprise, or if they don't do so well, it's going to be a surprise, because everyone is going to come into this game anticipating that anything could happen, because, I mean, it feels like a brand new team, because it is actually the program from top to bottom, with general manager Michael Lombardi to the last player on the roster. So,
Yeah, man, and just this TCU team. I mean, let's start talking about this TCU team. I mean, just a strong passing attack. I mean, when you think of TCU, well, not just TCU, when you think of Sonny Dykes, you think of an aerial attack. I mean, he is one of the main disciples of that Mike Leach coaching tree. Now, they do like to run the ball, but they want to have a balance. He likes to have a balanced running attack. If you looked at his last 14 years as a head coach, half of them, his defense, his rushing attack averaged 150 yards per game. He wants to have some sort of balance. And they're trying to find. Last year they weren't really great, so I know he wants to build one. But he really likes this running attack, and I did an exclusive interview with him, and something that Jeremiah, I know you've taken a lot of quotes from because it's very insightful. But he really likes his running back room, even though a lot of the guys coming back were part of that pretty bad rushing attack. So I think they could be better. I mean, the fact they say he likes it tells me that they have an opportunity to be better. However, they're going to throw the ball. And I said this on the last podcast too. They're going to give up yards, right? So, if they throw for 330 yards, that's not an indictment on North Carolina's defense. That you're going to give up yards. That's the way their offense is. They're going to want to throw the ball. They're going to throw the rock around. And the whole purpose of the easiest way that you can't really stop them, right? There's no such thing as stopping the air raid. But what you can do is you can slow it down. And some ways you can do that is running the ball effectively. And that's something that I think everyone is really paying attention to. Can North Carolina run the ball effectively? also with the absence of Amari Hampton, who of course has gone on to do better things. But then also you have to put pressure on Josh Hoover. Josh Hoover is a very good quarterback. He broke the school's record for most passing yards last year with 3,149 yards. So he threw for nearly 4,000 yards, and he also threw for 27 touchdowns. However, he also did throw 11 interceptions, and there's 3 straight games where he threw 2+ picks. So, you want to put pressure on him because he's a little bit of a gunslinger. So you want to put pressure on him with the line play, but then also another way to slow down their offense is to run the ball effectively, kill the clock, keep them off the field, because that offense is rhythm-based. Like any offense, all offenses are rhythm-based. But for that one that relies so much on tempo and stuff like that, you can have a quick 3 and out and then just run the ball. But you have to be disciplined. They have to be a physical at the point of attack, period. And now that we know Austin Blask is going to be out for the whole month, Christopher Kelly may be available, but at this moment in time, I don't expect him to be unless he goes on pads out there, and I think that would be huge if he does. But right now, you're down 2 offensive linemen. You got to figure out ways to run the ball. And then also on the defensive side of the ball, you have to put pressure on Josh Hoover. You need to force some sort of 3 now. You want to keep him off the field because the more you keep them on the field and the more effective they are on offense, it's going to be a long, long day in Kearney Stadium.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel like one of the main points is how creative can Coach Bill Belichick get? How has all of his experience as a head coach lead up to this point? And what can he do to combat TCU's air raid, as you said? What can he do to combat their running that they will do? Like, how will they stop the air raid? How will they stop the ground game? And Grant, I want to know, I feel like this is a good segue going into a next topic. If I know you said TCU is going to take game 1 of the season for UNC schedule, do you think if TCU were to win, do you think it's because of their air raid attack or UNC's lack of scoring?
Ooh.
So do you think it will be UNC's failure to score will be the reason they lose, or will it be TCU's air raid that will beat them?
I think it's a little bit of both, right? Mm-hmm. You have to find ways to score points, right? Because their offense scores points. I mean, if you look at their statistics, throughout Sonny Dyk's tenure, they've averaged 30+ points a game, right? And you have to find ways to score points. And right now, and I know everyone's like, well, they're receiving, everyone's really high on this receiving core. I think they have potential, right? Starting with Jordan Shipp, I think he has a lot of potential. But the issue is they haven't had a whole lot of production. How can we say this group is going to be really, really good and be one of the better in the ACC if we haven't seen them play? Right? We've seen bits and pieces of them. Isaiah Johnson played in Michigan State, but his production was kind of limited, and we didn't really get to see him play. Jordan Shipp only had over 100 yards last year. He didn't play that much. And Kobe Paysour is the most experienced guy, but he's only had 900 yards of receiving. TCU, there's a bunch of guys on that roster right now that have had over 100,000 yards in their career. Eric McAllister, who was the leading receiver for TCU last season, the guy had 762 yards of receiving last year alone on 39 catches, by the way. That's 19 yards. So 39 catches for 760 yards. That's 19 yards per catch, and he had 5 touchdowns. Kobe Paysour's had 900 throughout his career. And then also, UNC doesn't have really the established number 1 receiver. TCU already does. Eric McAllister has shown he can perform in big-time moments, and he was the number 1 receiver at Boise State in 2023 before he transferred to TCU last year. And then Jordan Dwyer, who's another guy who transferred this season, he was the number 1 receiver at Idaho. He had over 1,000 yards receiving and had nearly 200 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns against Montana State, who, by the way, was the FCS national runner-up last year. They have dudes who we know are dudes. UNC doesn't have that dude yet, a receiver. And, can they be explosive? I think Gio Lopez can. I think if there's one of the biggest reasons why UNC will win is because of Gio Lopez's playmaking ability, but you can't rely on Gio Lopez to win games for you. He's not like he's Jane Daniels, right? Or like a Joe Burrow where he can single-handedly change the game. I think he can, but there's not enough guys around him that I think can do it yet, right? They have to prove it. There's now a whole lot of production, and on top of that, we didn't get to see them during fall. We didn't get to see them during the spring because we didn't know who they were because they didn't have any numbers. And then the last fall camp, Bill Belichick limited the amount. Like, of course, we heard him speak and we heard other players speak, but it's like we didn't see him at fall practice. How can we say this team's gonna be good if we didn't see him at fall practice? You know what I'm saying? Like I love everyone in the media, but that's the one thing I do have is like you can't say this group is going to be phenomenal if we haven't seen them play. Period. And not to be a Debbie Downer, but you get it, Jeremy. I think we haven't seen them yet. It's hard.
Yeah, I feel like that sentiment is one that is shared amongst the media. Obviously we all understand that Bill Belichick likes to keep things on the down low, or in other words, DL. So even us as media members are going to be surprised tomorrow by what this UNC team will do. So we're gonna, on the inside, we're gonna have similar reactions to what this team can do on the field against an experienced TCU team led by Sonny Dykes, with a proven quarterback, with a proven wide receivers, with a running game that is far beyond UNC's right now. So it's just going to be really interesting to see what they can do in game one. And I mean, I have UNC winning. I feel like just solely off optics, I feel, as I wrote in my response, it's going to be interesting. So yeah, it's going to be a great game.
Yeah, I understand your point about optics and everything. The crowd, it's going to be one of the more insane crowds in Keenan's history. But at the same time, I mean, you also have to have the players. And right now, I'm going to say, I mean, yes, and really, here's the thing. I know everyone wants to harp up Bill Belichick, a great coach. Of course he is. I mean, look what he did in the NFL. But he's never coached in college ball. Like, how can we say he's a better coach than Sonny Dykes? If Sonny Dykes has coached at the college level, has coached all these kids before, has seen these stadiums before, has been in these environments before, than Bill Belichick. And I'm not saying that. I'm not saying Sonny Dykes is a better coach than Bill Belichick, but I often go by who has the better quarterback, who is the better coach, and who has the home field advantage. And yes, you can hypothetically say that UNC has 2 or 3. They're going to have the home field advantage, of course. But then also it's like, is Bill Belichick, a better coach than Sonny Dykes? I'm not saying he isn't or isn't, but it's kind of hard to say who's a better coach if one coach is coaching college football his entire career and the other guy literally coached the NFL his entire career, right? But TCU does have the better quarterback. I think they have a little bit more experience, but they also have a lot more experience. Yeah, TCU doesn't have that much experience than UNC, but they have much more experience playing with each other. We know what they're capable of. We don't really know what UNC is capable of. We don't know who we don't know who the true number 1 receiver is. We don't know if Davion Goss is the guy to replace Omarion Hampton. Can Caleb Hood stay healthy? Can Gio Lopez even live up to the hype? And I'm high on Gio Lopez, but he still has to live up to the hype too. And then on top of we talked a lot about TCU's offense. We haven't talked a lot about TCU's defense. TCU had a top 25 pass defense last year. Their defense coordinator, Andy Avalos, is one of the best in college football. So if we want to talk about Steve Belichick, who is a phenomenal defensive play caller himself, we have to talk about Andy Avalos himself as well. And he's a really good defensive play caller. He's one of the more respected defensive play callers in college football. And I would say this, the one caveat about TCU's defense, and I'll say this, as experienced as they are, as talented as they are, they did allow 160 yards of rushing last year. That was in the 80s through college football. Remember, there's 130 college football teams in the nation, and they're in the 80s. That's mediocre. So that, and if you're TCU and you look at that stat, are they still vulnerable to the run? That'll be very interesting. So can they run the ball against that TCU front? I think they can. But that TCU front is really good. And Ansel Dean-Boo had 24 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, and 6 sacks. I mean, you got the Deal brothers, Marcus and Devin. It's a very good front. And, of course, Nnamdi Obiazor is one of the best linebackers in college football, let alone the Big 12. So, and also got to mention the defensive backfield, Bud Clark, who has played for TCU forever, by the way. I just want to let you know. He's this 6th year at TCU. Like, he I remember him playing at Alexandria High School in Louisiana. And that was 2019. That was the senior year. He's been in college football forever. So he's got a lot of experience as well. So I think TCU's. So can UNC run the ball effectively against a TCU defense that was kind of so last year? And then on top of that, can they throw the ball effectively against a defensive backfield? Once again, that was a top 25 defensive backfield last year when it came to defending the pass.
Oh, man. Gio Lopez is going to be in for quite the game against this defense.
Might have to run around a bit.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have to use those legs. I mean, for one, stepping away from him being a quarterback, let's see how much he runs. I mean, looking back at Drake May, I mean, he ran the ball a lot when he was at UNC, so that's what comes to my mind. But it's going to be interesting how offensive coordinator Freddie Kitchens is going to manage the offensive strategies. What is he going to call in certain positions? What is he going to do on third downs? How are they going to get that first down? I mean, is he going to run? Is he going to throw? What is he going to do? I mean, we're all going to be surprised. We're all going to learn what this team can do. I know it's only one game, but it tends to let you lean in certain directions depending on how the game goes in the end. So
yeah,
we all get to be judges tomorrow.
Yeah, and of course I mentioned in the group chat that I'm not the biggest Freddie Kitchens fan. I'm not saying Freddie Kitchens isn't a bad coach, but Freddie Kitchens, I mean, in the NFL, really wasn't that great of a play caller. And I think his approach is correct. I think he wants to have a physical approach, and that fits well with what Belichick wants to do. And I think you have the players to kind of fit that mold. However, once again, you don't really have that number one running back yet, and I think Davian Goss can be that, but he hasn't. I mean, we won't find out to tomorrow. Tonight, and then you don't really have a true number one receiver, so it's kind of a okay. Can this guy step up kind of situation? But if you look at apologize. But if you look at this NFL, so he took over for the Cleveland Browns when Hugh Jackson and Todd Haley got fired, right? Before he took over, they averaged 4.87 yards per play, which is 28th in the NFL. And then Baker Mayfield was completing 58% of his passes for an 8-6 touchdown to interception ratio, and he took 20 sacks in 8 games. I mean, it was not a very, very good first half of the year for the Browns. However, when Kitchens took over, this was in 2018, their yards per play jumped up to 6.86, which was the best in the league, and their total offense climbed to 395 yards per game. The offensive line improved because the sacks allowed plummeted from 4.13 per game to 0.63, with only 9 quarterback hits in the final 8 games. I mean, Baker Mayfield's stats went up. Right, Nick Chubb really benefited from the change as he rushed for nearly 1,000 yards, scored 25 total touchdowns in his rookie season, and a lot of that was because they were throwing the ball to him more out of the backfield and blah blah blah. However, when he got promoted to become the head coach in 2019, and he still had the offensive play calling duties, the offense was They fell from 13th in the total offense from the year before, and 13th in total offense, 14th in passing offense from 2018 to 22nd in both categories. And it was, and then the scoring offense also slipped from 21st to 2018 to 22nd in 2019. The rushing attack was so good because you had Nick Chubb, but Nick Chubb was also one of the best running backs in the NFL, and he really still is to this day. But then when he became the offensive coordinator for the Giants, Jason Garrett was originally the offensive coordinator, and the Giants averaged 322.9 yards per game and 18.9 points per game. However, when Kitchens took over, I mean, it nearly plummeted 100 yards. So it went from 322.9 yards per game to 236.5 yards per game, and then went from 18 points per game to 9.8 points per game. In that stretch, when Kitchens took over as an offensive coordinator, the Giants failed to pass for more than 200 yards in any game compared to 7 under Jason Garrett. Their worst passing performance came against the Bears, where they threw for -6 yards. They threw for -6 yards in a 29-3 loss. And look, to be fair to Kitchens, Daniel Jones was out the final 6 games, but still, -6 yards in a game. Like, brother.
Bro, I mean,
You know what I'm saying? Like, you know how hard it is to throw for -6 yards in the game?
yeah, that number is, to put it simply, baffling. But man, hi man. I don't know. I mean, you already said it all. I mean, I don't know. There's much more to say. I feel like it speaks for itself. So I'll leave it at that.
I mean, he's been a questionable play call. Like, and I understand why Bill Belichick has him as an offensive coordinator. He knows these players, and he fits into the mold of we want to be the 33rd NFL team. But his history is pretty questionable, right? And this has been a discussion about Bill Belichick. He can't pick an offensive coordinator. Because remember, I'm not sure if you remember this, but a few years ago, he hired Matt Patricia as the offensive play caller. Matt Patricia's a defensive play caller. He's a defensive guy. He was his defensive coordinator the last time he was with the Patriots, and 3 years down the road, after he gets fired by the Lions, hey, you know what, Matt? I know you're really good at calling the defenses, but can you call our offense for us with a second-year quarterback? That would be great, Matt. Like, that's what he did. It was wild. And yesterday, I'm not sure if you saw the whole Ohio State Texas game, but Matt Patricia called a defensive masterclass. Like he made Arch Manning a meme yesterday, and not in a good way.
Man, yeah. I mean, Ohio State held Texas, the preseason #1 team, to 7 points. I mean, and Arch Manning and Texas struggled to get that touchdown. I mean, they struggled. They struggled heavily
the whole entire game. I mean, it was. Yeah, I mean, it's and really, Texas should have never been #1. They were never the #1 team. It's all about the Arch Manning hype, and I think Arch Manning's gonna be a great quarterback. He's a New Orleans guy. I'm gonna root for him because I'm a New Orleans guy. He's a New Orleans guy. But the thing was, it was so ridiculous how much pressure everyone's like. Oh, he's gonna be the #1 quarterback in the draft, and he's gonna be. He's the best quarterback since Tim Tebow. It's like, okay, so like Joe Burrow, Cam Newton just never existed. Like, come on, guys. Like, it was ridiculous. And hopefully, I'm glad that game happened because I think it now made everyone realize, okay, he isn't an alien. He's just a guy who has a chance to be a really good quarterback. He does have, well, I won't say he has intangibles because there's some things I didn't like about his mechanics, but it just showed you like he's still just a guy. He just happens, his last name just happens to be Manning. I think everyone got caught up in that, which I think which is a stupid reason to hype up somebody because his last name is freaking Manning. And yes, I do know the genes are really good in that family, but once again, it was ridiculous. But going back to North Carolina, because I went off the rails from Matt Patricia to see what happens when we start talking college football. But that's just if there's one thing I feel like that could derail UNC's season, I just really think it could be the offensive play calling. And I feel like I don't know what they're trying to. We don't know what offense they're going to run. We don't know. We know what defense they're going to run because we have a lot of data on what Steve Belichick runs. And look at the players they brought in that they're all fit as defense. But I'm like, what offense are they going to run? Are they running a pro-style offense? Are they running a spread? Are they going to run like kind of like a read option offense, kind of like what Florida State did against Alabama yesterday? Like, what will their offense look like? So I'm just really afraid of that they're not going to have any identity on offense. I know they're going to have identity on defense. I know that because defense is the Belichick way. Steve Belichick's defense coordinator. Brian, of course, is the one that was, I believe, he's the cornerback. He's one of the defensive back coaches. I'm not sure if it's cornerbacks or safeties.
Yeah,
I think it's safeties. I think he's safeties. Because Mondo is a cornerbacks coach. But we know they're gonna have identity on defense. But offense, I had no idea what they're going to do because we haven't seen them in practice.
Yes, and I wanted to say this to add to your point about the concern about the offensive coordinator. Freddie Kitchens may not be exactly the best option, but I feel like in Bill Belichick's perspective, when he was creating his coaching staff, he may have been the best fit.
Yeah, that's what I said. Like he was the best fit.
Yeah.
Like I think he just fit what he was trying to build, and also you already knew a lot of the players that are currently on the roster, including some of the offensive players. He already knew already, so it made sense. I get what Bill Belichick's trying to do, but it still is kind of questionable because like his offensive play calling history has been a mixed bag or less than a mixed bag, to be honest with you. And then also, we have no idea what their identity is on offense, other than the fact that Gio Lopez may be Magic Johnson.
Yo.
Which is a great nickname. Which I believe it. I believe that he's got a great playmaking ability. I believe. Like I saw him play when he was at South Alabama, and I was covering LSU last year, so I've seen him play. Like he's actually a decent little player. But my point is like you can't rely on him to do too much. Like what exactly is the plan? Like what is the plan? And I don't think we'll find out about that till tomorrow. Sure. And that's what I'm really concerned about.
Man, I mean, for two people in the position that we're in, working in this job, I feel like just for you and I, and I'm sure for the rest of the media, we're just gonna be really tuned in to like, yo, what the heck is this team going to do?
Yeah, and that's literally everybody. I mean, nobody and I think that's also what makes this team so exciting is that we have no idea what they're going to bring to the table. We don't know if they're a 6-6 team. We don't know if they're a 3-9 team. We don't know if they're 8-4 or 9-3 team. Or we don't even know if they're a playoff team. No one knows. We won't know till tonight. And that makes it really, really, really exciting. But at the same time, we will find out a whole lot about this UNC team throughout the first month of the season. I mean, of course, you got this game against TCU. The next game you go against Charlotte, who, by the way, Charlotte did not look good against App State. So I think that's going to be a dub. But then Richmond is a solid FCS program. They're expected to win the Patriot League, and they're a pretty decent team, man. They're one of the better FCS programs around. They won a national championship. Says a lot. And then on top of that, the game after Richmond, you have to travel to Orlando. And yes, UCF was a 4-8 team last year, but really, I don't think the record really reflected the team itself because they were one of the better rushing offenses in the country last year. And also, the Bounce House, which is actually the name of the stadium, is literally called the Bounce House, is one of the toughest places to play in college football. I think they're 85-30. Yeah, I think I remember correctly. They're like 85-30 since the stadium opened up, and like talk about in big games like conference championships, they have never lost a conference championship on their home field, and this is before you had the stadium because I think because Conference USA and the American Athletic Conference they had their championship games at the higher team in terms of the standings, and they have never lost a single game, never. So you already know that the crowd's gonna be sold out. So you don't want to I think best case scenario for TCU is you start the season 3-1. If you go to 2-2, kind of pushing it, even if the schedule is favorable towards UNC. But I mean, it's gonna be still I think the schedule is favorable UNC. But once again, if you start with a 2-2 start, it's not gonna bode well because even if it is favorable, that doesn't mean the games aren't going to be tough. They're going to be tough.
Yeah. I mean, just when you look at it on paper, it doesn't really look like the hardest schedule ever. But as this, the theme of this whole entire podcast is the unknowns. Like, what is this team going to do? So going into each and every single game, it's going to be a surprise for all of us. So, I mean, there are a lot of good opponents, UCF, Richmond, and then I had in my 3 losses for UNC, Clemson, Wake Forest, and Syracuse. So
you might want to change that Wake Forest prediction because they looked awful the other night. They looked bad. I mean, who they I forgot who it was. It wasn't Elon. That was Duke. It was who was it? I forgot who they looked bad against. It was some team that I'm looking up right now.
Oh,
it was
Kennesaw State.
Yeah, Kennesaw State. by the way, I think they went like 3-9 last year. I mean, they won 10-9. So I don't think that's going to happen, big dog. It might be Duke. I said if there's one team in North Carolina they're going to lose to was against Duke. I think they're a good team. I think they got an even better quarterback this season. Their defense is really, really good. And I think they'll be NC State. I think this is the year they finally beat NC State. But my God, Wake Forest looked bad. I mean, bad against Kennesaw State. Bad against Kennesaw. Actually, I want to look up their record last year. I think they were like 2-. I think they went like 1-11. Yeah, they went 2-10. I mean, that's a bad program because they're like the second year of the transition. Like, so Wake Forest. I mean, so I don't think it's gonna be Wake Forest. Like, I mean, it could be a trap game a little bit. Yeah, maybe so. But dude, no, they look bad. And Robbie Ashford's the quarterback. I can tell you this right now. They're bad. They're bad. I'm very familiar with the guy. I'm very familiar with Robbie Ashford. I can tell you this right now. He's bad. Really bad.
Man. All right, maybe it's not Wake Forest. But
maybe I think you should go back and let me know you need to edit that because they look bad. I let it hang. I'm like, should I tell them that Wake Forest is a bad team? Should I tell them?
The reason I chose Wake Forest as a potential loss is because one, in my eyes, I feel like because just given they're on the road and it's like so and so game, like who knows? I mean, this team is just like I mean, I know Bill Belichick is the focal point. I mean, I understand why he is the reason why people are high on this team. Like he is the reason, and so I felt like Wake Forest is one of those games, just like one of those like drama games. Like, oh dang, like headlines everywhere. UNC loses to Wake Forest on the road.
Yeah. I think that if there's any game where what you're describing, I think that's Cal. I think it's more so Cal than it is Wake Forest. And Cal is projected to be, in the bottom, kind of similar to Wake Forest. However, I'm factoring in the travel. Wake Forest is only an hour away. It's only an hour and a half away. But when you go to Berkeley, that is 3,000 miles away. That's on a whole completely different coast. Matter of fact, I don't want to say this too. So people think California is a warm state. And yes, that is true for Southern California. But when you get to the Bay Area, it can be a little bit cold because of the current, because the currents in the Pacific Ocean, they're colder. So for example, if you go into San Francisco, you might as well bring like a light jacket with you. Why? Because when you get outside the airport, you're like, oh my God, why is it 55 degrees outside? You know what I'm saying? So it could be a little chilly in Berkeley on October 17th, whenever they play. Yeah, I think it's October 17th. And so I think that's a game. And so my games I had them losing were this game, Clemson. I think, we're both in agreement with Clemson. But I also had them lose against Syracuse, and I had them lose against Duke. But I think that Cal game was a game I'm like, I was kind of debating on, should I give that a loss? Because it's just the travel and the time difference, and it's on a Friday night. It's a weird night to play college football. A lot of stuff can happen. And then you brought up a good point because because I'm glad you mentioned that too. What's the word I'm looking for? You mentioned Bill Belichick and how everyone's high on Bill Belichick because he's the coach. Will we be saying the same things if for example, let's just say if I don't know, Scott Satterfield took over the program or somebody like that, like John Smith with the same exact team makeup we have right now? Will we be saying the same things if John Smith took over the program rather than Bill Belichick? And I think that's another interesting angle. Everyone's just assuming that they'll be good because of Bill Belichick. But the team can only be as good. The coach can only be as good as the team can only be as good as the coach. Or I think it's the vice versa. I think it said it wrong, but you get what I'm saying. Like the team, we don't know how good this team really is. We know how good Belichick is. We've seen him on the podium holding up a Lombardi Trophy 6 different times. But are the players like that. Is basically what I'm saying. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I think that's a very interesting thing that I don't think people have brought up yet. And I'm surprised nobody has. Like, would we be saying the same things about this North Carolina team if Bill Belichick were not the head coach?
My answer, no.
Yeah.
Honestly, no. Bill Belichick. Just I've written this sentiment a lot in my articles in the building up until this game. Who would have ever thought a decade ago Bill Belichick would ever be the coach of UNC? I
No
feel
one.
like that's just only in a fantasy world. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like who would have ever thought Bill Belichick and UNC, two big names, one UNC being for its brand, like school branding, Bill Belichick for his NFL success. Like, who would have ever thought? And then just put those two worlds together, and you get this explosion of the Bill Belichick effect.
Mm. Yeah, man. It's very, very, very interesting time in Chapel Hill. But anyway, Jeremiah, any last things you want to mention before we end things?
I just wanted to let you all know, readers, that Grant and I are going to grind while in the press box.
Yeah, it's gonna be a heavy grind, man. Heavy, heavy grind. Yeah, but so is everybody. I mean, so I think we're the last ones of the college beat writers to actually we will be because we're the last
Yeah.
college beat of the weekend.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Grant Chachere, Jeremiah Artacho. Make sure to follow us both on Twitter. Also, make sure to follow our Twitter page at Tar Heels on SI, and also make sure to go follow the Facebook as well. North Carolina Tar Heels on SI. Also, make sure to go check out our website. Got a lot of great content. We're going to be putting up content all day tomorrow, so make sure you go check that out. And it's a lot of great content, of course. Now start to pick up now, finally, for the first time, as we have officially approached game day, and we'll keep uploading articles in the next few days. Also, North Carolina's been a short week because remember, you got Charlotte on Saturday. It's a short week for North Carolina. There's going to be a lot of them too. For North Carolina and the Tar Heels as well. But anyway, that's going to wrap up today's show. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. And hopefully the next time we hop on the pod, it'll be with North Carolina winning the game. So I know for Jeremiah's sake, I know my team won. I'm glad about that. LSU Fighting Tigers, proud alum 2023, baby. But Jeremiah, I think it's only complete if your team gets a win as well.
We'll see what happens. It's going to be a crazy game. I'm very excited for this atmosphere and very grateful to be able to do this job with you, Grant.
Yes, sir. All right. Peace, y'all.
Peace.